Flying the innovation flag. Now, a standard is an old word for a flag. And back in the days of sailing ships, you could see a forest of them fluttering away at the stern of ships of all shapes and sizes, proudly declaring their allegiance to a particular country. And right now, in the innovation world, we've got a similar display of ships. Organizations of various shapes and sizes, all flying the new ISO 56000 flag, the Innovation Management Standard. Now, we've moved from the days of exploratory voyages, small ships piloting the waters, trying to chart the emerging cartography. Now, after 10 years or more of discussion and debate, we've got the full squadron proudly sailing into view, 7 ships of the line flying the standard and inviting others to sign up. Let's leave that metaphor aside, but there's clearly quite a lot of activity going on in the innovation management harbour, and it might be worth taking a closer look. First of all, what is it? What is ISO 56000? Well, it's an attempt to capture and codify what we've learned about managing innovation, to enable organizations to take a systemic view and put such a framework into systematic practice. There have been innumerable conversations, drafts, discussions, and other movements behind the scenes, but the standard is now published and available. There are 7 core documents, each with accompanying detail and covering different complementary areas. At the heart, 56000, ISO 56000. That deals with fundamentals and vocabulary, and it's trying to set out a clear language for innovation management. That's not an easy task, given that innovation is often a Humpty Dumpty word. Like the character in Alice in Wonderland, people are prone to use the word to mean whatever it is they want it to mean. But it's an essential foundation, if any kind of innovation system is to operate, to have a common language. ISO 56001, the Innovation Management System Requirements, sets out the core model around which the standard is built. It describes what's needed for establishing, implementing, maintaining, and continuously improving an innovation management system. ISO 56002, Innovation Management System Guidance, builds on those requirements and sets out the how-to steps, what we need to do to implement a system which conforms to those requirements. It describes the kind of processes needed for all stages in the innovation journey, from ideation right through to commercialization and capturing value. ISO 56003, Tools and Methods for Partnership, picks up a key aspect of today's innovation context, the fact that it involves a multiplayer game. In an era of open innovation, creating value from ideas will involve various kinds of interaction and collaboration, and this document offers guidance and suggested tools to enable this. ISO 56004, Innovation Management Assessment, offers a framework methodology for assessing an organization's innovation management maturity, and guidance on how to use this to develop a strategy for building capability and measuring progress in developing innovation management capability. ISO 56005, Intellectual Property Management, recognizes that innovation is fundamentally about knowledge creation and deployment, and it provides guidance on IP and how to manage knowledge flows in strategic fashion. ISO 56006, Strategic Intelligence Management, deals with gathering and analyzing strategic information to support innovation, helping organizations make informed decisions in a rapidly evolving market. Now, at the heart of these ISO standards is a core model which tries to distill over 100 years of research and practical experience of success and failure, and to make that available in the form of a model focused on key building blocks. The underlying approach is to invite organizations to assess themselves against this core model of good practice, and then to use that to develop their innovation management strategy, deployed in terms of how they organize innovation, who gets involved, and how they put in place processes to ensure they can repeat the innovation trick. Anyone might get lucky once, but in an uncertain world, there's a need for such a systematic and systemic approach. So far, so laudable. There's no doubting the importance of the topic. In a changing world, we can't sit still. We have to innovate. But that's going to need much more than simply waving our arms in the air and declaring that we believe in innovation as a slogan. If we're serious about innovation, then we need to learn how to organize and manage it. And we need to develop the ability to repeat the trick, to create a system capable of delivering a steady stream of product and process innovations which really do create value from ideas. Now, this growing focus on the ISO standard is valuable in the sense that it provides a focus. It spotlights the need for such thinking, and it helpfully connects that focus of attention to the rich body of knowledge which already exists in the form of courses, textbooks, and consulting offerings, all of which have been around for a long time. The model sets out a core process and identifies the routines which need to be put in place to make innovation happen. Now, ISO's track record on this is important. As an organization, it has a great deal of legitimacy. People have learned to trust its frameworks and its guidance as being founded on careful research and evidence collection. So its standards have the power to become powerful normative maps. They shape the development of practice. And we've already seen this in fields like quality management, where the ISO 9000 series of standards helped usher in a new global approach. We already knew what made for delivering consistent, reliable quality. We could draw on extensive original work from writers like Walter Stewart, Joseph Juran, Edwards Deming, and Philip Crosby. We could adapt the practical experience of deploying new methods, especially experience gained in the laboratory of post-war Japanese industry. And we could recognize the limitations of current approaches and the frustrations of not being able to control a core organizational process effectively. What the ISO did was collect and codify this knowledge and experience, providing a clear framework against which organizations of many shapes and sizes could assess themselves and use that information to help build for the future. It provided a benchmark against which claims of being a quality organization could be measured. Becoming ISO certified became something of value in branding, and then essential as procurement departments began to seek out that stamp of approval as a way of securing their purchasing decisions. It's been the same story with the ISO 14000 series of standards linked to sustainability and environmental responsibility, and in many other areas. ISO standards help provide precision and focus in thinking about key issues and influencing the world of practice. They give us frameworks against which to reflect and enable development pathways to be mapped out in our journey towards competence. So, potentially, the ISO 56000 family of innovation management standards might help support improved innovation management practice at a time when such capability is becoming an imperative for survival and growth. We desperately need innovation in dealing with so many social and business challenges, and having a systematic, evidence-based framework and the tools for delivering it seems a valuable resource. But inevitably, the arrival of ISO 56000 also raises some questions, particularly around how it might be used. There's certainly a value in trying to cut through the hype around innovation and invite organizations to take a more evidence and research-based review of their capabilities, rather than swallow the latest faddish prescription about innovation. But at the same time, there's a risk that it itself becomes part of the innovation hype cycle. We've seen the pattern. New ideas and ways of looking at and working with the innovation challenge catch on, and suddenly everybody's talking about them. Things like innovation labs, agile work, reinvention, currently AI, they all become fashion accessories, the must-have badge without which no self-respecting organization can afford to be seen. Is ISO 5000 going to be the next one of these? There's certainly growing interest and discussion of the theme. There's lots of blog posts and conference papers and so on, all moving innovation management standards center stage. And there's an expanding pool of service offerings from consultants offering to help guide organizations in their journey towards developing innovation capability. Linking this to a clear benchmark standard and even holding out the promise of certification underpins much of the interest. Standards are designed to do this. They create normative pressures which nudge organizations towards exploring and aligning themselves with them. Their existence can also create FOMO, that fear of missing out, that effect which focuses attention on something which has always been around but which now assumes a much more tangible form. Smart organizations have always known it's a good thing to review their innovation approach regularly and to update it to keep pace with a rapidly changing environment. Now that's becoming a question for many others. Are we in shape for innovation? And the presence of a clear framework within which to explore that question is attracting a lot of attention. Cue the sound of hundreds of ISO flags being hoisted up the masts of all kinds of organizational ships. Now, one emerging question which this conversation has triggered is pretty fundamental. Isn't the very idea of standardization in conflict with the creative spirit of innovation? Isn't the presence of one likely to drive out the other? Well, Peter Drucker, one of the godfathers of the innovation management field, asked this question 40 years ago, long before ISO had begun to focus on it. And his argument is worth repeating. It's captured well in the title of his influential piece from 1985, which was entitled The Discipline of Innovation. His view was that despite the popular myths which often surround the idea of innovation and entrepreneurship, the reality is that it involves systematic, disciplined work and should be managed like any other key corporate function. It may involve risk-taking, but that's not the same as gambling. And the structures which support and enable it need to be robust, reliable, and repeatable. The danger, of course, which too close an adherence to ISO 56000 might exaggerate, is that the systems, rules, and procedures which we put in place for this discipline to try and manage in a disciplined fashion become constraints. They stifle creativity and block off the entrepreneurial, exploratory spirit. Now, there's a precedent for this. During the early days of the standards-led quality revolution of the 1990s, many organizations were systematically putting in place procedures and frameworks which enabled them to achieve certification to ISO 9000. But some realized that having all the documentation in the world about a plethora of procedures did not in itself lead to quality performance. As one manager memorably explained at the time, well, we thought we'd go for ISO 9000 certification, but then we realized we ought to focus on doing quality first. In other words, the presence of a framework standard, however well researched and evidence-based, is no substitute for the kind of culture in which innovation is simply the way we do things around here. Building such cultures, which underpin the organizations who regularly populate lists of the world's top innovators, isn't easy. It requires commitment to review regularly the approaches taken to organizing and managing innovation, and then adjusting, adapting, improving on them on a continuing basis, which is a core part of the ISO 56000 family, especially with the embedded idea of regular and systematic assessment of performance against the framework as a way of informing long-term strategic development of innovation management capability. The standard's not the problem. The problem lies in the way in which it's used by organizations. It could simply be the latest example of what Steve Blank calls innovation theatre, adopting something for show without really engaging with the underlying issues. Or it can be a key resource, a framework for the development of innovation management maturity. There's also a risk in seeing such a standard as a one-size-fits-all prescription, something hardly likely to fly in a world where the common challenge of delivering innovation is experienced and met by such a wide variety of organizations. Once again, there's nothing wrong with the standards themselves. They set out clearly and systematically the overall framework against which to develop and improve. But innovation has always been about routines, organization-specific patterns of behavior, which help deal with the key challenges of innovation, like searching for opportunities, selecting amongst options and allocating resources, implementing against a background of uncertainty, and so on. Now, over time, these behaviors become embedded in processes, policies, and procedures. They become the way we do things around here. But critically, each organization has to learn and adapt its own version of them. There's no harm in borrowing good practices from others, but there's no simple plug and play model. Every organization has to put in its own hard work, configuring and implementing their version of these routines. So, a standard like 56,000 helps in providing the broad parameters, but within them, the responsibility is firmly on the shoulders of the adopting organization itself. Learning to manage innovation rather than simply buying into the latest, apparently successful prescription. One of the useful byproducts of the ISO framework is that it's prompted discussion about how we organize and manage innovation. And there are now many case examples of organizations of different shapes and sizes, public and private, for-profit, not-for-profit, big, small, across different sectors, all of them demonstrating how such configuration within the overall guidelines offered by ISO can work out. Linked to this is the need to recognize that in any organization bigger than a startup, there's likely to be a portfolio of innovation activity, ranging from plenty of incremental, do what we do but better work, to the occasional radical, let's do something completely different kind of innovation. And these need different ways of organizing and managing. The rich literature of research on the problems of corporate entrepreneurship highlights some of those challenges. Organizations need to learn to develop a kind of ambidexterity, able to work with different kinds of innovation under the same roof. Something which a blanket application of ISO 56000 might potentially conflict with. Once again, we need configuration. Perhaps the most important lesson we can take from the experience of the quality revolution, which ISO standards undoubtedly played a key part in, is this. Words like quality or innovation often hang in the air like motherhood statements. They're very hard to disagree with. Their value and importance is self-evidence. But if we're going to engage with them, then we need to move beyond slogans and labels to be specific, to put in place the kind of organization which can deliver them consistently. But there's a risk in then giving that mission, whether it be quality or innovation, giving that mission to a dedicated team of specialists responsible for its implementation. Now, we can certainly benefit from specialist skills and knowledge in these fields, but something so central as innovation needs to move out of a dedicated silo and become the overall culture of the organization, the way we do things around here. And that was the real secret to the quality revolution, getting everyone involved and taking responsibility for delivering quality. Specialists were invaluable as architects, coaches, enablers, advisors, but what worked was widespread engagement, total quality management. So if we're going to see a similar revolution in the way we manage innovation, we need to work on developing organizations in which all the players know where and how to contribute. Total innovation management, anyone?